Hello, everyone. This is Max, and welcome to another episode of Max Bytes, my mini podcast I do exclusively for all of you, my wonderful and lovely followers. How's everybody doing? I hope everybody's having a blessed week. And what a crazy week this has been. I mean, it really has been nuts, huh? Okay, so what I'm going to be doing here and in any subsequent podcasts, and that really depends on what goes on in the Manhattan DA's office over the next few days, is I'm going to try to explain the exactly what it is legally and this entire process, and kind of give you the tools and the information you need to kind of like figure out, okay, what exactly is going on, what is the charge, and is he going to be answer questions? Is he going to be arrested? And will this affect the 2024 election and all of that? So I'm going to do my best to explain it, and I'm going to put it into as a concise phrase as possible, okay? Or as concisely as possible, not a concise phrase. That made no sense. So here goes. But first, let me just tell you this now. Do me a favor, and if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, because that's the way that we get back at big tech, and that's the way we get them to work for us. So hit the subscribe button, and definitely, if you're enjoying the video, thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up, and leave me a comment, because I love the comments. I love the feedback. So leave a comment below. I would appreciate that. Okay. So regarding possible indictment and arrest. Okay. I remember saying in early December, I said this a couple of times in December on my channels, I thought the president was going to be indicted by the Department of Justice, as that's the context in which I was speaking. And some conservatives disagreed with me and pushed back. And then what happened? Well, Biden's DocuGate is what I call it. The document gate took place. And that pretty much made it impossible, really, not impossible, but highly improbable that the president would be indicted, because if you indicted President Trump for the document issue in which they found the documents in Mar-a-Lago, you'd have to do Biden because of all the stashes he had going back years and years and years in so many different places. What do you have, like 4 or 5 stashes of documents or something like that? So I said to myself at the time, this was by mid to late December, that it was very unlikely that they were going to ever pursue an indictment, at least no time soon. So they went back to the drawing board, and they have other cases going on. And this is where we are revisiting, and that's what it is. We're revisiting a 5-year-old criminal investigation that was at the state level, or if you want to say the city level, with regards to New York City. And President Trump has had so many different investigations. No president, I think, has ever been investigated as much as him from the get-go, from the time he took office. State and federal investigations all over the place, so many different places, right to the point where he left office, and other investigations afterward. Like the Mar-a-Lago raid was obviously something that's following up on after he left office. He took documents to Mar-a-Lago with him or something for toilet paper, whatever the heck it was. But the purpose in these investigations, and mind you, he's never been indicted, and he's never been found guilty. The purpose of all of these investigations is to create in the public perception, the public mindset, this idea of corruption surrounding this man and his administration. That's all the purpose has been for all these investigations. Because whenever you tell somebody, oh, this person's under investigation, everyone just assumes guilt. It's just sort of human nature. Even though you're innocent until proven guilty legally, everyone just assumes, well, there must be something wrong with this person. He's under investigation. So with Trump, all they would do is talk about the investigations endlessly, whether it was Russia, or, whether it's insurrection. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter anything. But what really does matter is the fact that he's never been charged with anything. Now, that's what an indictment is, and this has to be clearly understood from the get-go. When you say indictment, some people assume you're saying guilt. You're not. That's just a charge. It's an allegation, if you would. In this case, a grand jury will indict the president if that happens. And it's a charge that you then go to court and you defend against, okay? So it's not that you've been found guilty of anything. And I want to say something else I've said many, many times. I've said it on my main channels, and I've talked about it on Premium, and I've talked about it in other podcasts. The only constitutional body that could find anyone unfit or disqualify them from running for office is the United States Congress. And that is for insurrection under the 14th Amendment. And specifically under, I think that's Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, specifically, that does not apply to the president. At least that's a constitutional question which will go before the Supreme Court, because it doesn't articulate the president as one of the offices that Congress could find someone unfit to hold. And I'm using the word unfit there, but what I mean is disqualify them if they were to lead an insurrection. And of course, that was why the insurrection talk went on and all of that at the time. But I want to say this, and I've mentioned this again. This is another thing I've mentioned before. The president has been impeached twice. Impeachments are political indictments, and he's been found not guilty or acquitted twice by the United States Senate. So once was for the insurrection charge. So look, they need to do something. And so they went back to Manhattan, and now they've dug up this case, which is a 5-year-old cold case. And here's the salient points of it. Let's talk about that. So I'll just try to explain it. I'm going to have to start at the beginning because a lot of people don't understand it. So apparently in 2006, Donald Trump allegedly had an affair with a woman by the name of Stormy Davis. Shoot ahead to 2016. 2016 it's the eve of the 2016 campaign. So let's say October of 2016, she reemerges. Okay. All right. One of Trump's lawyers, a man by the name of Cohen, which you all know, you heard about, right? Apparently out of his pocket, not with campaign finance money, but, campaign funds, if you would, but out of his pocket, paid her off and had her sign a non-disclosure agreement. Okay. Over the next 2 years, Trump's accountants and his if you would, his campaign and his team, what have you, paid Cohen, allegedly paid him off, paid him back. I think in the number of something in the amount of like $420,000. Paid him back the $130,000 plus bonuses, if you would, and other expenses. Now, paying hush money, and this has to be understood, is not a crime. That is not a crime. Paying someone to remain silent, paying them off, that is not a crime. And that's a civil case anyway. So it's not a crime to pay someone to be silent. There's nothing criminal associated with that at all. Where the alleged crime took place is when he disclosed his expenses on the FEC forms to the Federal Elections Commission, he mislabeled them. Okay? So when he went to the federal government, he reported exactly what the expenses were. He mislabeled them I'm not going to say he expressly did it, but someone working for him when they filled out his paperwork for the feds labeled it as legal expenses. The mislabeling is a crime. At first, Cohen and Trump denied this happened. Then they changed their story. Trump's, I think, on a recording actually admitting to it. And Cohen admitted to it, and they said, well, yeah, they did. And they buried it in this documentation. Now, that is a crime. So we have to understand that. Okay. This was all investigated, though, in 2018. It's old news. It's old news. The Department of Justice and the FEC dismissed it, and a district court, U.S. District Court in New York, said it was pointless to try to pursue this at the state level then. So they just dropped everything. And in fact, the predecessor of Bragg, who's the district attorney in Manhattan, who's the one that's causing all of this, he's the one that's persecuting, not really prosecuting Trump. His predecessor just dropped the whole idea of pursuing it at the state level because you'd essentially be you'd essentially be prosecuting a federal elections case at the state level, and the fact that the DOJ and the Federal Elections Commission said that there's really nothing we can go after here that's worth it, we'll just drop it. Because the thing is this, it's very, very difficult to convict someone for paying hush money, because first of all, there's no crime, but convict someone for mislabeling, which is technically a misdemeanor, when the purpose was to essentially was to cover up hush money that was being paid. You see, do you understand what I'm saying? It's an extramarital affair, and someone's trying to cover it up, so they mislabeled something on the document because they will argue in court he didn't want his wife and family to find out about it. It has had nothing to do with election interference or violation of election law. That's going to be the argument in court. It was done to preserve his family. The only similar case, really, is the Jonathan Edwards case from about 15 years ago, 13 years ago. John Edwards ran for president in 2008, and he covered up. He actually used, or he was charged with using campaign funds to cover up an extramarital affair and a child he had out of his paramour, if you would, had out of wedlock, and he was doing it to cover it up from his family, from his wife who was terminally ill, and from the rest of his family. He didn't want anyone to know about it. He was acquitted. The FEC actually went after him, and he was acquitted from any crimes. Most recently, Hillary Clinton, of course, lied. Her campaign completely lied, again, mislabeling, to cover up the fact that they had paid for the Steele dossier, and they lied about that. At first, they said they didn't do it, and then they did do it, and they had used campaign funds. So what ended up happening? They were fined over it, but they weren't pursued criminally at the state level. You didn't see anyone in New York going after her, even though she's the former senator from New York, and that's where her residency is from. So what you have here is you have hush money, which is not illegal, paid to a woman to keep her silent before an election. Now, what is the crime again? The crime is it is mislabeled in a federal form. Trump's legal team, if it ever went to trial, would defend it, saying he was preserving his family's integrity, his celebrity status, even, his marriage. Okay. The thing is, it can't go to court because the statute of limitations on a misdemeanor in New York is 2 years. Let alone the fact that you're actually pursuing a state-level funded and state-level prosecution of a federal crime. That's a real stretch right there, in my opinion. I'm not a lawyer. I'll defer to lawyers on that one. But nevertheless, there's a 2-year statute of limitations. So the question is, when does the statute of limitations expire? Well, if Trump's legal team, or if Trump's accounting can you kind of infer from it, the crime happened in 2016, okay, quote unquote, but not really. Let me back up a step here. The event happened in 2016. The subsequent repayments to Cohen happened over the next 2 years. So when they filled out paperwork, they may have, we don't have that information in front of us because we really don't even know what they're going to charge him with yet, but we're assuming it's all of this. So it's like, okay, Cohen was paid off over a 2-year arc. So let's say the 2-year arc was sometime in 2018. 2 years from that, the statute of limitations expired in 2020. It's simple math. Unless you can have the misdemeanor upgraded to a Class E felony under New York law. The Class E felony under New York law is a 5-year window. That's what most scholars think. The question then is, when did that expire? If you assume that Trump paid off Cohen by let's say March, April of 2018, because that's when most people do their taxes and do all their paperwork when it comes to money, if you would, then 5 years from that would be we're right at the deadline, which would explain why they're scrambling like they are. They must be scrambling because they're coming to the deadline for the felony. The only way to upgrade it to a felony, or a Class E felony, which is a minor felony, is if it was being done to what? To interfere with another crime or to cover up another crime. And in this case, it'd be like election interference. Specifically, it would be a violation of elections law. The only problem with that is the Federal Elections Commission has already dismissed that entire idea. So it has to do with their laws. And 5 years ago, they dismissed the idea of pursuing it. Not only that, but like I said, the First District Court in New York, First U.S. District Court of New York, dismissed the idea too of pursuing that. So you have a New York district attorney being paid by state funds, probably supported also by federal funds. And of course, according to Ron DeSantis and others, he's also supported by Soros, who is taking his time out where he should be prosecuting cases involving criminals in the city of New York that are that are assaulting private citizens, taking all his time and taking that money, and he's going after a non-resident, Donald Trump, who's no longer a resident of New York, over an elections crime that has nothing to do with their jurisdiction. Now, do you guys actually think any of this is going to stick in court? I don't think so. I don't think so. So if there's tremendous pressure on the district attorney. This is New York. This is about as Democrat as you can get. There are only very few other places in the country that are as far left wing as New York City. And you may have a jury there that all hate Donald Trump. So you don't know how they're just going to ignore their own laws and statutes. Typically, you would go to court and you would expect to have your day in court. These days, we don't even know if we're going to get a day in court. But if you're indicted, it's a charge. You get to defend it in court. And if you're found guilty, you get to appeal it. What do I think? This is what I think is going to happen. If he's indicted, I don't know if he'll actually be handcuffed. I don't know if we'll actually get pictures of that. I would be kind of surprised if that happens, but who knows? They're very dramatic there. If he's indicted, he's not going to see it. I don't think he's going to see a day in jail. I would be really surprised. I mean, if he sees a day in jail, I'll eat my Stetson. Okay. I mean, seriously, I don't think that's going to happen. So a lot of you out there are worried about, I would be shocked if that happens. But okay, crazier things have happened. This again is New York. Do I think he's going to be in jail at the end of the week? Or no, I don't think so. I think he'll be out on bail. I know some of you are going to say there's no bail in New York and all that kind of stuff, but he'll be out on bail. And if it goes to trial, I think it's going to be dismissed. If the judge finds him guilty, okay, he's going to appeal that. And he's going to win on appeal. And if he doesn't win in New York State Supreme Court, for instance, on appeal, don't forget, he can appeal directly to the U.S. Supreme Court. And I do believe they would take up the case. You may say, well, no, they'll never take up the case. No, they'll take up the case for this. This is nuts. This is really nuts. They'll step in over this one. You're going to have so much pressure from Alito and Thomas and the right wing of the court to take up the case that even Roberts is going to probably want to step in on this, which he's done some stepping in here and there to stop Biden. He's jumped in here and there because this is really an abuse of power. And it really looks like a political witch hunt. Okay. And that is basically this is part one. I'll probably do subsequent parts to this, but if you want to follow me on this, and definitely subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter and on Telegram. But I'm going to be covering whatever happens over the next few days ad nauseum and in detail on Maximus Premium, which you should join Maximus Premium, and all of the description is below. Contact Roxy Balboa, the number 1 at gmail.com. Maximus Premium is my premium service where I talk about everything and cover practically everything nearly 24/7. We go around the clock there. We break things down. We have a private chat, and people post questions, members post questions, and we have great political discussions. We have some very big intellectuals in there as well. That you want to join Maximus Premium. It's a lot of fun. If not, you can join Max Tracks, my newsletter, and join hundreds of others who have. And I will be sending out the next issue this week. It's going to be going out, and it's going to be a terrific issue on a lot of what I've just discussed. And definitely do that. If you do any of these things, you want to join, contact Roxy Balboa, the number one, at gmail.com, or hit her up at Roxy_Balboa on Twitter or Telegram, and she will take care of you. And we are holding a discount this month, 33% off if you join Maximus Premium. And so you want to take advantage of that. It's really a good idea. I hope this episode, and it's a lot to try to process, but I hope it has clarified some things to you guys and you have enjoyed it. Thumbs up, leave a comment below. I love yous, and I will be seeing yous really, really soon. God bless yous. Have a terrific rest of your week, and just relax. Whatever else happens, relax. Be talking to you again soon. Bye-bye.